going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Pokémon types are an intricate topic that become all the more complex when you bring in combinations of elements together, resulting in all different strengths and weaknesses to make Pokémon stand out from each other. However, some of them stand out all the more by being unique in their combinations, and some for a shockingly long time, which is kind of a shame because it means that certain type pairings are quite hard to use in a casual playthrough, like say Rock and Dark for instance. Currently, the only Pokémon with this typing is Tyranitar, and while Tyranitar is undeniably cool, you're not really able to use one until you're basically done with the game. And even if you could catch a Larvitar early enough, it's still gonna be a rock and ground type for its first two stages, not to mention that it'll take forever to evolve anyway because it's a pseudo-legendary, so you would be waiting for most of its life to switch over to the dark type. So we definitely need to see this combination come up again, because it is scandalous that Tyranitar has stood alone in this typing since Gen 2 before Y2K. And it really wouldn't be that hard, at least it seems to me. I mean, we've already had other Pokémon that could have fit the bill as it is, but in a new generation, all they would have to do is give the equivalent of a new Knucklestack or Cloth the Dark typing. It doesn't have to be the regional Rock type, since they are totally gonna canonize that mandatory early route Dark type next generation for sure, but maybe a solid mid-game two-stage Rock type that just so happens to be Dark could go a long way. But then again, it may not work out for the best since Tyranitar's stats really boost an otherwise mediocre typing with equal strengths and weaknesses, with a quad weakness and an immunity that sort of cancel out. But competitive isn't everything, and it's only right that we get to experience every type combination in a regular Pokémon journey. You know, before there's only 5 minutes left in the game. And as of the existence of Pecharunt to copy Poison and Ghost, Tyranitar has the second oldest type combination to never be used by another Pokémon, behind only Poison and Flying. Actually, that's a good point. How have we never seen Poison and Flying since Gold and Silver as well? And even then, it was really only an add-on to the existing Gen 1 line, so really there have been no new Pokémon under this particular banner since the very beginning. Is it just a problem of abundance where they see Zubat as far too common, and so they wanted to spare players the perceived torture of facing too many venomous sky varmints? Because really, it's not that bad. Perhaps it could be tricky in the early game when a Zubat would quad-resist Bug, Grass, and Fighting, and be immune to Ground, but as move pools became more accessible, we got some electric or rock attacks that could counter them pretty easily. Your only real critique would be that they could offer up more psychic Pokémon in the early stages to fight against them, and that would be fair, but it stands out as especially strange when Flying was the first type to be paired with every other. Yet Poison's latest contribution has been old enough to vote for about a decade now. Even more recent additions like Fighting and Fairy have already seen new blood, so you can't tell me that there would be no other good possibilities for an airborne toxic creature out there. Probably not just like a poisonous bird, that wouldn't really work, but maybe there's a flying lizard that could do the job, or a cloud of acid rain or something. I mean, even coughing and wheezing could have been part flying type with how much air they pump out, and all of their floating around everywhere, so we could certainly see the Zubat line loosen their grip on the Poison and Flying title, especially since for the first time ever, they have not been in the current generation of Pokémon anywhere, and finally let somebody else share the spotlight, especially because Zubat can't see it anyway. Now for the next spot, I would like to ask you, what is a Pokémon type pairing that is so overlooked that people not only forget that it was ever created, but also done twice? I suppose there could be multiple answers for that question actually, but it is astounding the number of times I have heard fans say it would be awesome to have some kind of bug and ground type, only for me to remind them of Nincada and Wormadam. But honestly, I don't blame them. One is a base stage that has two vastly different, more useful evolutions, and the other looks too much like its base stage, and is only one possible form that the Pokémon can take. So while nobody can deny that Bug and Ground has been done, it's never really lived up to all the potential that we could have here. I mean, you look at something like Earthworm, and it could easily have been Ground and Bug instead of Steel. Now, I'm not saying that Steel doesn't work, but the point is that we have options, and Sandworms are only one tool in our belts. We could have also slapped ground onto relore instead of being monotyped, and nobody would have cared. Well, no, let's be real, it would have perpetuated the lack of satisfying bug and ground types, so some people would have cared. I still probably would have put it on this list, but since it's been so long since Gen 4 when the last half-hearted measure was taken, I have to wonder what their hesitation is to allow these types to be put together. And maybe they're just scared of how amazing it could actually be. Or more likely than not, they have some form of writer's block. Now, a far more popular and recent type pairing is Normal and Ghost, made famous by the introduction of Hisuian Zorua and Zoroark in Pokemon Legends Arceus. A great regional variation of a Pokemon that was already a fan favorite, but these types together make them so much more interesting, because Normal and Ghost kind of cancel each other out, carrying over all of their immunities and only having a singular weakness. Funnily enough, it's the typing that Zoroark used to be, but while these illusionary foxes are great, it can be hard to get a hold of them as they are only from the one game. So if you didn't pick that one up, then you would have to rely on the generosity of strangers. But imagine if it weren't so restrictive. You probably wouldn't be allowed to have one super early because then it would be immune to far too much, and even Hisui didn't let you get one until the final area, but perhaps sometime after the 4th or 5th gym. Because really, there are plenty of ways to pair up Normal and Ghost, from regular bedsheet costumes that you come to expect from generic ghosts, to everyday objects being possessed. After all, the Shuppet line could have effortlessly donned the normal typing, and it would have made perfect sense. I mean, if you're telling me the sand, metal, or tree bark is enough to give other ghosts a new typing, then surely some stuffing or plastic could too if they had possessed a random toy. I suppose they could always do a Blueberry Academy thing and allow specific regional forms in certain areas of the following game, but we really shouldn't have to rely on a single offshoot of another Pokemon in order to get one of the most satisfying type combinations in the franchise. Real quick, I want to point out an exception, you might say, with no combinations in that we desperately need more pure flying types. For a full 20 years, we only had a legendary to fill this void, which it absolutely didn't do, because you can't exactly use a Tornadus to take on the first gym, and only in Sword and Shield did we get Rookidee. And believe me, I love Rookidee. It's a great Pokemon, and I was super excited when I first caught one, but I was quite disappointed to learn that it did indeed become Corviknight, losing what made it special, because that means that we still don't have any pure flying types that we could use throughout an entire playthrough. Granted, you could just keep it a Corvisquire, I guess. I mean, I do love me some self-imposed challenges like not evolving your party, but plenty of Pokemon over the years could have solely been a flying type. Like, say for instance, Castform, who is a literal cloud. So can we please afford flying the same respect that every other type seems to get in droves? Okay, one that I personally forget about quite a bit is the fact that Fairy and Dark have been put together. Currently this type pairing is only on the Impidimp line, and maybe I forget it because I don't really care for these Pokemon, but they are certainly unique, I'll give them that. Not so much inherently from their typing, more like their weird hair limbs that are a bit unsettling. But really the combination itself isn't that bad. When you put them together, there are some prominent weaknesses, but also resistances stacked with a pair of immunities. So this combo would be pretty great against the Eon Twins, as it would be immune to both Psychic and Dragon. But why are we limiting ourselves to one evolutionary family? There are plenty of inspirations that could result in a Dark and Fairy type. Don't ask me what they are specifically, but if nothing else, Mega Absol definitely could have and probably should have been part Fairy type. Actually, speaking of Mega Evolutions, that brings me to a very important type of mission that also contains Fairy when it's paired with Dragon, because that's only ever been done on Mega Altaria. And while it's cool that Altaria has something special like that about it, that also means that it's basically impossible to get your hands on this combination. Even if you could get a Mega Stone early enough in the story, Swablu evolves relatively late compared to most other birds, and even then it's a temporary in-battle power-up that goes away every time, and even then, Megas went away for the better part of a decade. It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. While we do have confirmation that Megas are back for Legend ZA, how long will that last this time before they vanish again, and we're left without any Pokemon to be a Dragon Fairy? So we definitely need a regular full-time Pokemon to fill this role. so that we don't have to worry if it's available or not. And we can just have Mega Altaria pop up every now and then as a fun bonus. But if we want to look at hard-to-get type pairings, the worst offenders are probably the legendary Pokémon, since you can't capture them until all of your fun is already over with. And while we have seen some of them be more generous given time, any typings exclusive to that crowd are locked away to the point that they might as well not even be in the game at all. I want to focus right now on Heatran. It seems that legendary fire types have a bad habit of being a bit stingy, but Heatran has been our only fire and steel type Pokémon since Gen 4. And trust me, if you were there during that generation, that is much longer ago than you think. We have had more than 4 generations since Heatran came out, yet it is still stubbornly refusing to allow anyone else to don this really awesome type pairing. And really, it's not even that hard to imagine what another Pokémon could look like. You just put some metal and fire together and that's it. There's already a multitude of Mario enemies that could work, you just have to draft them over. I mean, just picture a flaming weather vane or something random, or literally anything from half of the periodic table to be on fire, and then you've got something just as compelling as Heatran, or some would argue even more. Or just go ahead and make the first gun Pokémon, I don't know. And the worst part is, it's a pretty good typing, but it is by no means overpowered, because it has an easily exploitable quad weakness to ground. So just make sure that you pass through a desert or something before you find a new one and you'd be good. Sure, that would probably lead to a bunch of air balloon gravity strategies in competitive circles to play around a hypothetical new Pokémon of this combination, but that's their problem. They shouldn't deprive the rest of us of the joy of a fire-steel type until the post-game for the rest of time just because of that, because I am a firm advocate of having all legendary typings be accessible on at least one other common Pokémon. So watch out, because you're next, Terrakion! There are still a surprising amount of type combos that are so heavily restricted. I could probably go on for days about how Electric and Normal should be on a ton more Pokémon besides just Helioptile, but which restrictive type combinations would you most like to see revisited? Let me know down in the comments. Also, be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And until next time, stay grounded!